I want to thank everybody for being with us here today. We are in Austin today as opposed to Kerrville because of deadly storms that have swept across central Texas and areas outside of the Kerrville area, and because of more expected storms that will pose life-threatening danger over the next 24 to 48 hours. I want to emphasize, however, even though we now are broadening the area that we're focused on, we are not at all reducing our focus on Kerrville. They remain a key focus in so many different ways. We continue 24/7 operations to search for anybody who was affected by that deadly storm. We still have our Department of Public Safety assets, the National Guard, Texas Task Force 1 and 2, and game wardens, all fully engaged in responding to the disaster in Kerrville. We also intensify our focus on the families affected by this. They're going through horrific events that have turned their lives upside down. We're working to aid them, assist them with regard to counseling, grief, all kinds of things we can do to assist those families. One of the most important things that we can do is to address their greatest concern, and that is there are so many families that are still waiting to learn about their loved one. And we are working 24/7 to get the information that will be able to answer their question. What I can tell you is several things. I had the opportunity yesterday to visit Camp Mystic and get to see firsthand what happened there, as well as all the way downstream after that. And it was nothing short of horrific to see what those young children went through. And we will remain 100% dedicated, searching for every single one of the children who were at Camp Mystic, as well as anybody else in the entire riverbed, to make sure that they're going to be recovered. We know that parents and families, they want information, they want closure, and we want them to know that we are working as swiftly as possible to get them accurate information that will provide that closure. I do want to thank the local officials, city and county and otherwise, who also are working around the clock to make sure they are addressing those concerns. The information I'm going to give you is as of this current moment in time, knowing that this information will constantly change throughout the remainder of today as well as in the coming days. In Kerrville and Kerr County, there are 59 confirmed deceased. There are still 11 missing from Camp Mystic. Separate from there, in the central Texas area, there are confirmed 10 deceased. And across the state, in all the areas affected by flooding, there are 41 known missing. So important to emphasize this, especially in the Kerrville area. There were so many people who were just camping out, not children in camps, but adults camping out near the river, people in RVs and things like that. There are people who are missing who are not on the known confirmed missing because we don't yet know who they are. We will maintain our ongoing search throughout the entire river system to find anybody who may be missing. One thing that could help this is if you are a relative or friend of someone that you think was in Kerrville or Kerr County that you think is missing, please contact the local officials in Kerr County and let them know that you have the name, identification, and other information about a person who is suspected to be missing. If, however, you don't have confirmed information about that and you're making phone calls, you are slowing down the process of the first responders being able to respond to those who are clearly identified as missing. If you're doing that, you're interrupting official business, and that could be potentially illegal. Call only if you have specific information. While we continue the search process in Kerr County, we are now also beginning the process of responding to the disaster that took place. Includes things like debris removal. Anybody who's seen any images whatsoever in the Kerr County area, you know there's debris all over the place that makes roads impassable, that makes reconstruction projects unachievable, that makes search process more difficult. And the state and local governments are working now on that debris removal process. That process is improved because of President Trump's swift declaration of our major disaster declaration. He ensured in less than 24 hours that major disaster declaration was approved, ensuring that state and local governments are going to have more resources to be able to respond to that disaster, more resources to begin the debris removal, more resources to help individuals who've been impacted by this, as well as local governments that have been impacted by this. Bottom line is this, and that is the swift and very robust action by President Trump is an extraordinary help to our response. I also want to thank Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, with whom I spent the day yesterday in Kerr County. I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen anybody as responsive and as quickly in her response as what she was yesterday. She didn't wait to get back to us. She was able to, in a matter of minutes, get answers to very important demands. And on behalf of the state of Texas, we cannot thank her or the Trump administration enough. I've also been in contact with, and people reached out from Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Burgum, and others that in the entire administration are a tremendous help. I also want to add that there are governors across the country that have been in contact with either myself or with Chief Nim Kidd or state agencies offering their assistance, including Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, Kim Reynolds, the governor of Iowa, Jim Pillen, the governor of Nebraska, Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, the governor of the state of Oklahoma, and Governor Landry in Louisiana. And again, I'm sorry if I missed some. I know there's others that are constantly reaching out. We're here, as I mentioned, in Austin today because there have been lives lost in this greater region. And importantly, there are dangers over the next 24 to 48 hours that could pose public safety threats to people in these regions. There is heavy rainfall that's already occurred, and there's more heavy rainfall that's expected that will lead to potential flash flooding broadly in these regions: the Big Country, Concho Valley, Central Texas, and once again, Kerrville. The point is this: if you're in any of those regions, you need to realize, for one, you're in an area with land that's already saturated with water. But for another, when more water comes down, it could lead to rapid flash flooding events. Now, there's nothing expected at this time to the magnitude of what was seen in Kerrville. That said, flash flooding can occur at lower levels of water than what happened in Kerrville. It's a particular threat for people who are driving on roadways. Some of the lives lost in Central Texas were people who were swept away in vehicles or in similar crossing type situations. Know that rising water on roads can occur very rapidly. You may think that you can drive through it, only to find out when you're in there that it's too late and that you're getting swept away. And so we urge everybody to be extraordinarily cautious for the next 24 to 48 hours. If there's any water on the road, you got to be safe. There's an old saying for a reason, because it's true, and that is, turn around, don't drown. You don't need to get from point A to point B if it's going to risk your life. Your job, the most important thing you can do, is to protect your lives. And taking a step back, for all of us up here, that's our number one job. We put public safety first, and we'll worry about the physical damage second. There are still public safety issues and lives to be saved in Kerr County. There are lives to be saved in all these regions that I just mentioned here. We want our fellow Texans to be safe and secure, and you can do more about that yourself than anybody else can. With that, I will, I think, pass it to you, Colonel.
Yes, sir.
Colonel Freeman Martin of the Texas Department of Public Safety.
It's been a tough 3 days for Texans, and I can assure you here at this table today that everything that can be done is being done. Currently, we have operations going on in several different counties. Williamson County had 3 people missing. They recovered 1, 2 are still missing. Ongoing searching. Burnett County is missing, 2 people missing. The fire chief and a 17-year-old female. The Department of Public Safety is offering any and every resource that we have to help with those searches, whether it be boat teams, rescue, divers, helicopters, drone operators, drones. So there's a lot of work being done. The governor's very accurate. The ground is saturated, so now a little bit of rainfall and watershed can cause issues. Williamson County is well aware of that. The ground was saturated. They knew that it had issues, and they evacuated neighborhoods, which saved lives. All that being done, they still have 3 that were washed away. I'll touch on Kerr County. We have about 230 DPS personnel assigned to Kerr County, and everybody thinks about search and rescue and what we're doing. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're filling every gap, and first off, this is nothing negative about Kerr County. They've got a very good sheriff. Their fire chief is exceptional. Their police chief is exceptional. Everybody's working together. The outpouring of support, there's a lot of volunteers. There's a lot of good stuff going on, but there's a lot of there's just a huge need, and it's a large area. So we're providing 18 tactical marine units with boats. We've got 65 CID personnel assigned, over 230 in total. 11 Texas Rangers, 28 from our Special Operations Group, our SWAT guys. In addition to that, we've got 9 helicopters with tactical flight officers. We're providing cell towers and trying to solve the issues with the radio communications and their cell phone communications. We provided communications operators to embed with them to handle 911 calls and handle calls with concerned family members. Dealing with the families of these missing individuals, there's no higher priority for us than finding those children. We've assigned commissioned personnel and victim service personnel to the family that are working. They're with them 24/7, can answer or address any needs that they have and get them any information they have. This is tough work, recovering them. So we have victim service personnel there to work with officers that are conducting the search operations additionally. We have some unidentified individuals at the funeral home, adults and juveniles. The Texas Rangers are collecting DNA from family members and from the deceased victims, and we're flying those to the University of North Texas in Dallas, and we will have answers with rapid DNA in hours, not days, to get some closure and information back to these families. We have, in the last couple of days, an outpouring of support from our federal partners, DEA, HSI, and FBI. We've embedded them with our search and rescue teams. This is tough work. It's hot. They're in the mud. They're removing debris. There's snakes. There's water moccasins. This is God's work that they're doing. So, you know, the top priority is the family and the victims. Pray for them, but throw our first responders in there, because there's a lot of good work going on. We're not taking away from any resources from Kerrville to pre-stage here. We're pulling from South Texas, West Texas, and North Texas into Central Texas to prepare for our emergency response. We're well prepared. The legislature, the governor, in previous years have been overwhelmingly supportive of law enforcement and gave us the resources, so we're prepared to respond to events like this in multiple regions of the state at the same time. So, Governor, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, General Seltzer with the Texas National Guard.
Good afternoon. The Texas Military Department remains decisively engaged across the flood operations area. Our current force composition, we have 230 personnel operating. We're flying 8 helicopters, and we've increased the size of our force of high-profile military vehicles to help evacuate people from high water areas. We've also expanded our operations area to not only include Kerrville, but we now have personnel operating in San Saba and Burnett. The additional resources we've added since our last briefing are a behavioral health officer in Kerrville, a chaplain in Kerrville. We also sent a chaplain to San Saba. We've expanded the state's Air Operations Center, which is a multi-agency air coordination center hosted by TMD, but it includes every agency that operates across the interagency in Texas. So inside that operations center, we can ensure that the right asset is going to the right location to do the right job. Additionally, today we have launched the MQ-9 Reaper remotely piloted aircraft out of Houston. That aircraft departs Houston, goes out over the Gulf of America, and climbs to 18,000 feet, and then along a special FAA corridor, traverses over to the Kerrville area to conduct persistent SAR, persistent incident awareness and assessment operations. It's truly an eye in the sky for our search and rescue people. I'd like to thank the Federal Aviation Administration today. Due to weather at 18,000 feet, we could not transit from the Gulf of America to the Kerrville area. The FAA granted a temporary flight restricted area through a lower altitude, which allowed our aircraft to safely transit across Texas and operate in the Kerr County area. In terms of rescues and evacuations for the Texas Military Department, we have a total of 525 rescues or evacuations. 366 have been by air and 159 by ground. Of those count, 20 ground evacuations occurred in San Saba and 5 air evacuations occurred in Burnett. And that concludes my brief. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Now with the LCRA, there it is, Phil.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I'm Phil Wilson, General Manager of the Lower Colorado River Authority. I think the most significant message we have in the general area right now is that if and when we get more rain, please stay off the lakes. High of the lakes have a lot of debris right now. It's not safe to be boating. It's not safe to be out there. We'll let you know when it is, but critically, stay off the lakes. It's July. People are used to summer, and this is not a good time to be out there. To echo, we're working very closely with law enforcement. We have our rangers deployed to Burnett County right now with our mobile command center trying to support the activities up there. It's a partnership working all together with law enforcement, TDM, and everyone that's showing up to help assist. It's a very critical time for us. Next, what the governor said, we have a lot of saturation. We opened gates up at Wirtz and Starkey the last couple of days. Those are closed right now. We're ready just in case we need to. We've added more than 350,000 acre feet to the height of the lakes of Buchanan and Lake Travis. We're 67% full. We have a lot of room and headroom in case more water does come in to make sure those reservoirs do what they're supposed to do, which is to capture the water for the future and protect against flooding. Thank you, Governor.
Very good. Now, Chief Nemkit.
Thank you, Governor. And I want to remind everyone, life safety is still our #1 priority. And what I mean by that is, and Colonel Martin said it very well, Kerrville and Kerr County have great local emergency managers and responders. They really do. But they're a community of about 55,000 people. And they had a lot of people there that were not from that area visiting, vacationing. And their resources, and this is what state agency, what the state government does when a local community gets overwhelmed, is we send in additional resources. So our hats are still off to all of those local responders that live and work in that community, and that their homes and families were also impacted, and they're still there on the job. We owe them a great amount of gratitude. Second, we continue with our search, not only in Kerr County, but everywhere that we know we have missing people. And I need your help in being very cautious. Let's not get wrapped around the axle on the word recovery. You're going to start hearing the word recovery used in a lot of different contexts. Be very careful how you use that word, because I'm going to be careful how I use that word as well. We are going to begin recovery operations. That is debris cleanup. That is opening roads. That does not mean we are no longer doing search for live victims, because we still are. We are still out there in very much hopes, very much fueled by the compassion that we show for these families, that we're doing everything we can to find their missing loved ones. So please help me in making sure that we're not wasting our time and efforts on debating over the meanings of words. Let's get clarity when we ask those questions. Second, I'm asking, we've driven around Kerr County and the other areas a lot. We have a lot of people that are traveling in because they want to see firsthand the damage. I'm asking you, if you're not from the community and if you're not involved in our response and rescue and recovery efforts, stay out of the area. Stay out of the area because you don't know the area. Another thing I'm getting right this minute during this press conference is reports of an additional wall of water coming down some of the creeks going into the forks. And I want you to think about that for a second. If you're not from that area and you don't know the low water crossings, you could find yourself in a very dangerous situation. The next thing is we see a lot of information on social media about volunteers and spontaneous volunteers being frustrated because they can't help. We are evacuating parts of the river right now because we're worried about another wall of water coming down in those areas. If you're a volunteer there that you're not checked into our operations, we have no way of accounting for you right now. There is a process that we use to get volunteers into the response, and I'm asking for your help and to get that message out. It's not that we think we don't need any help. It's that we want to make sure everyone helping is doing the job that we need, where we need it, and when we need it, and we have the ability to communicate with them. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the word recovery as it relates to the President's disaster declaration. We are very excited to begin those recovery operations with our federal partners who have been here with us in the Emergency Operations Center since last Thursday, since before all of the actual flooding and disaster started. And we're going to work very close with those partners to help our local communities and our families that are impacted by this recover from this disaster as fast as possible. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. We'll take a few questions. Go ahead.
Isabel, I know that you mentioned 10 deaths in Central Texas. Is there any way you could give us a breakdown of the cities?
We sure can. Chief Kidd has it.
So we're showing, reaffirmed 3 in Burnett County, 1 in Tom Green County, 5 in Travis County, and 1 in Williamson County. And again, those numbers are a few hours old. Those numbers could go up, but that's what we had as the time preparing for this briefing.
You said what county?
Tom Green.
Tom Green?
Tom Green.
Yes, ma'am. San Angelo area.
Thank you.
You just said something about a wall of water that you're just now getting reports about. Can you talk more about that and what you're seeing there?
Yeah, I'll share some of it. So I apologize for looking at my phone during the press conference, but this is the live updates that we're getting right now from the field. Is there are unconfirmed at this point reports of additional water coming in. And as the governor mentioned, there's rain still falling on the area. It's not going to take the same amount of rain that caused this damage to make the current water levels rise up, right? Because the ground is already saturated. So any rain that falls can be perceived as life-threatening rain. And so if you're in a low-lying area, we need you to move yourself out of that low-lying area. We've got DPS aircraft that are flying up to try to find this wall of water right now, and the people in the reported areas, again, unconfirmed, that are on our communication systems, we're asking them to get out of the water and out of the way so that we don't wind up having to do additional rescues.
Governor
Go ahead.
Abbott, CBS Austin, you had mentioned that there are dozens of Central Texans missing. Local resources can't continue searching in the dark of the night. Does this federal disaster declaration mean that we have federal resources to continue searching when it's pitch black?
Sure. Well, first of all, on the federal disaster declaration, it applies right now to Kerr County. Let me go back. Let me see the total, my disaster declaration counties. So let me walk you through this. So I made an original state disaster declaration, and then I amended it to add more counties. Let me first go back over those counties, then I'll explain to you what's going on. Under the state disaster declaration includes the following counties: Bandera, Bear, Burnett, Caldwell, Koch, Comal, Concho, Gillespie, Guadalupe, Kendall, Kerr, Kimball, Llano, Mason, McCullough, Menard, Reeves, San Saba, Tom Green, Travis, and Williamson. That means because of that the state is providing additional resources for those counties and state-based assistance. On the federal disaster declaration, for the time being, that includes only Kerr County. And they are waiting to see the magnitude of what happens in other counties before they may potentially expand the federal disaster declaration to include other counties.
So for now, local resources have to stop search and rescue efforts when they fall.
That's not accurate.
No.
We have drones and helicopters that have thermal and night vision and FLIR where they can search at night. Our special operations groups have that. And, at the law enforcement level, we don't really wait for a federal declaration. the feds come. They're there, they're helping. They offer assets and resources. This helps with funding and additional resources and bringing in from out of state. But our local federal partners they're very involved. So we've, of course, we're a lot more productive during the day, but we search at night, and we're seeing some really good results, which is good. But the bad news is you will see the death toll rise today and tomorrow.
One other thing to add to that is the U.S. Coast Guard, part of the federal government, was here working long before the declaration was granted based on our partnership and relationship. So we still have Coast Guard assets here, and they will operate at night as well. Thank you for the question.
Go ahead.
Bayless Wagner, Austin, American States. Could you talk a little bit more about the warnings that local officials got, the way that the state and federal government communicated with local officials, and whether you believe that these deaths were preventable?
So there were multiple steps taken by the state that I'll let Chief Kidd talk about, but the state began setting up operations in preparation for what could happen in Kerr County. It happened in the early morning hours of the 4th, which is Friday, and the state had pre-positioned assets and resources in and around that area beginning on Wednesday before the storm on Friday. As we learned more on Thursday, more assets were provided in various regions. We knew, based upon predicted weather, certain regions where the rain may fall. There was an inability to know precisely where that rain was going to fall and how much was going to fall, where it did fall. And as far as what the locals may have done, Chief Kidd may know more than I, but I would leave it up to them to let you know.
And listen, thank you for the question. We need to spend a lot of time trying to answer this question because from a technical perspective, there are multiple warning systems that are out there. And all of us can choose to sign up for warning systems in certain areas depending on the local government that we're in and the way that their system works. There's a lot of talk about a program called WIA, the Wireless Emergency Alert, and IPAWS, the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, and how they work or sometimes don't work. And then you have areas where there is no cell phone coverage. And if there's no cell phone coverage, it doesn't matter how many alert systems you sign up for, you're not going to get that. And then there's the NOAA weather radios from the National Weather Service. I'll ask you, how many of you have a NOAA weather radio by your bed at home? And so there can be all kinds of alert systems that are sent, and we know that some were sent, some general messaging was sent early, some urgent warnings were sent at various times, but just sending the message is not the same as receiving the message, having a plan to do something when you receive the message, and then the ability to implement that plan. And so I really would love to have a separate conversation with all of you about how we can continue to get the message to the public about what they need to do when they get a message, what they should do when that message is received, and how they communicate that back to their loved ones and family members.
Let me add this also. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the city manager for Kerrville explained that on the morning of the 4th, he was out jogging at about 3:30 in the morning, and it just then began to rain a little bit. He got home and saw that it rained a little bit more, and he saw after that the torrent of water that was coming down the river. And the point that he made was that by the moment in time when they knew the magnitude of the water, it's a difficult decision whether or not to begin evacuating people or not, because if you have a warning telling everybody to evacuate, you could actually lead them to their death. We know that some deaths in Kerrville were people who died who got swept away who were trying to evacuate. And so local officials know the best about the terrain, about the danger spots and things like that, about who might be able to evacuate, those that would just be getting into a more dangerous situation.
You talked in what you just said kind of about expertise and about just knowing the area, and that extends also to the National Weather Service folks who are in those offices and have years and years of experience. There are currently 6 vacancies in the local National Weather Service office that cover Kerr County. What is your perspective on how that could have impacted the warnings that you all were able to get and how accurate the information you all were able to get?
So I know nothing about the staffing. What I do know is what they put out. And it's my understanding that what they put out was kind of the information that the state was operating off of, and that is that there were alerts or warnings about heavy rain, potential for flash flooding in certain areas. A problem with that is that to most people in the area, flash flooding would mean one thing, not what it turned out to be, because they deal with flash floods all the time. Just like I put people on notice in these regions of Texas right now. There's the potential for flash flooding, but there's no expectation of a water wall of almost 30 feet high.
Governor Abbott, on that topic, we know that these alerts can be life-saving at times, and a lot of times these forecasters get their information from the National Weather Service. Are you communicating with your federal partners on how critical funding is for the National Weather Service in order to issue alerts like this in this disaster like this?
It's one of the things that we spoke about when Secretary Noem was in, and this is part of ongoing conversations. And I'll add this. As you all probably know, we have a special session coming up, and the way to respond to like what happened in Kerrville is going to be a topic for the special session to address.
We have time for 2 more questions, folks.
Is part of what you want to address, because there was a bill that was going to create a council to kind of talk about what warning systems, and it was not successful. Is it a concern that there's all these camps on this area? This is an area that deals with flash flooding, but there were no sirens that were in this area. Can you talk about that and why that hasn't been funded to this point?
Well, it's going to be something that will be looked at. As you kind of pointed out, these camps go back almost 100 years, and they are familiar with the water in the area probably better than anybody else. And they have their own ways in which to deal with warnings that would involve children, sometimes as young as 8 or 9 years old. And we need to evaluate what they know, how they respond, what they need. And that's why it's going to be good to have a session with all members working together that would bring different perspectives, because the reality also is this, and that is what's needed in that river basin at that location could be far different than what's needed in some other river basin across the state.
Time for 1 more, folks.
Go ahead.
Hayden, Texas Tribune. Do you know if anyone tried to get warning to people at the camps outside of the automated disaster system?
I missed the first part of the question.
Did anyone try to get warning to the people at the camps outside of the automated system?
So
I'm not sure that I understand the question. I mean, does somebody go door to door and knock on the doors, or?
Yeah, we're just wondering if there are any official outreach in the area.
You know, we talked to the county emergency manager when we were there the first day, and the county does have a plan for that county and the 18 or so camps that are in that county. Probably be really good to ask them that question and let them give you that answer. It's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
thank you all.